Good evening. I'm Kathy Garrity from Quincy Votes, and we're here tonight to have the forum for the Norfolk County District Attorney. We have all the Democratic candidates here this evening, and along with Djuna Perkins, we are going to assist you in learning about these candidates as well as understanding the district attorney role. So just a little bit about Quincy Votes as we start. Quincy Votes is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that really is here to assist the residents of Quincy in understanding elections, understanding and receiving fact-based information on the candidates. So, the quincyvotes.org website contains lots of information for you, but we're here to share that information. We began in 2025, we focused on low turnout precincts within Quincy to target them with mailers as well as door knocking, and really to understand what gets people out to vote. So this particular election, while we have the 7 Democratic candidates here, following the upcoming election, there'll be just one, okay? So your vote really matters. The election is September 1st, and so, it's right before Labor Day, and people are away and busy getting back to school, so please make a plan to vote. And so I'd like to introduce Djuna, and she'll tell a little bit about the Asian Pacific Islanders Civic Action Network.
Thanks, Kathy. Hi, my name is Djuna Perkins, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Islanders Civic Action Network. We are a statewide coalition of working class and Asian American serving organizations that builds collective power across the AAPI community here in Massachusetts to advance racial, economic, and immigrant justice. And our vision is for a Massachusetts where AAPI communities, especially working class, immigrant, refugee, and historically marginalized communities, build collective power, shape the decisions that affect our lives, and to work in solidarity with other BIPOC communities to create a more just, equitable, and inclusive Commonwealth where everyone can belong and thrive. And I'm thrilled to be here again with Quincy Votes for another candidate forum, and excited to speak with all of you and learn more about what the Norfolk DA role entails. So thank you all so much, and thank you for tuning in. Back to you, Kathy.
Thank you so much. So a little bit about this evening. So this is our first venture outside of Quincy per se, right? Going further with the Norfolk County. So again, we're excited to get this information out to the Quincy voters as well as folks in Norfolk County in general. So, with so many candidates, we recognized that, there's a lot of information to absorb. So last month we sent out questionnaires to each of the candidates, and we have those posted on the Quincy Vote site. So we'll walk through the format of this evening, but I also wanted you to know that we solicited the community for questions to ask. So we're going to start out with opening remarks by the candidates. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and each of the candidates will have 2 minutes, and we'll ring a bell when it's 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then we'll proceed into the questions. The questions will allow the candidates 3 minutes to respond, and again, there'll be a 30-second kind of timer warning. And then we'll go to the closing questions. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so I guess if we want, we can say Jim, you want to kick us off in regards to your opening statement?
Sure. Thank you, Kathy and Jaya, and thank you to Quincy Votes and QATV and everyone who's watching. My name is Jim Barakat. I live in Braintree, Massachusetts. I'm the father to 2 girls, and they're one of the biggest reasons I'm running in this race. I want them to grow up, and the next generation to grow up in a more humane Norfolk County. Massachusetts incarcerates more people per capita than any developed country in Europe, and that's a problem. It's a problem because we cannot keep incarcerating our way out of every social problem that we have. Homelessness is a big contributor to crime, and so is untreated mental health issues. So is lack of housing, lack of jobs, and lack of opportunities for people who are coming back into the community from being incarcerated. These are all social problems that we can fix before the police ever arrest someone. Given that, I believe in a more not soft on crime approach, but a smart on crime approach. If we can do what our counterparts in Europe and all around the globe have been doing to help social problems and rooting out crime at its cause, we can do a lot to lower the crime rate in our community. In turn, incarcerating less people because less people deserve it, and making more opportunities for people to thrive, because education and jobs do more for reducing crime than hiring more police and building more prisons. Thank you.
All right, and Greg.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jaya. And thank you to Quincy Votes. Just make sure I'm on camera. There we are. Hey, there's Greg. So thank you for having me. I will say I've been a prosecutor in Norfolk County for 25 years, up until this March when I left the office to run for office. But my journey here started actually in 1996 when I interned for Bill Delahunt at the Norfolk DA's office, and I got to see the gold standard of how to prosecute crime, and particularly domestic violence. I finished going to Boston College, and I went to Boston College Law School, and then I joined the office in 2001 as an assistant district attorney. I worked my way up. I got to be the chief of the district courts, chief of the motor vehicle homicide team, chief of the financial crimes unit, where we prosecuted in addition elder fraud, and we also did public corruption. In 2017, I was named the chief trial counsel. My job was to take on and win the toughest cases in the county. And so some of those cases that I did was the Puppy Doe case here in Quincy. I also prosecuted Emmanuel Lopes for the murder of Sergeant Michael Chesna and Vera Adams. In addition to doing those things, I got to be a part of developing our treatment courts. In particular, I got to be involved in the drug court here in Quincy, as well as the Veterans Court. And one of the first things I want to do is I want to create an emerging adults court for young adults. But I will say, I think that role that I have had over this time is why I was endorsed by the Norfolk County Police Chiefs Association. I've been endorsed by MassCop, the largest police union in the state. And I have had the opportunity, in addition to doing this work, I've been involved in nonprofits for the last 18 years, including managing a early child care center here in Quincy and being the treasurer of a homeless shelter in Boston. I'm proud of being from Norfolk County. I'm proud of the work I did. I'm also disgusted by Michael Proctor, and I want to create an office that doesn't have room for bigotry, has a place for victims to feel heard, and if you're hurting others, you'll be held accountable, but if you're hurting yourself, we'll get you help.
Great. And Adam.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jaya. My name is Adam Deitch, and I live in Quincy, and I'm running for district attorney here in Norfolk County. Until this past November, I was a federal prosecutor, an assistant United States attorney in Boston. And I started out there doing all kinds of cases, everything from bank robberies to gun and drug cases to child exploitation and cyber stalking to all kinds of fraud. But what I spent most of my time doing was trying to root out corruption across Massachusetts, including and especially right here in Norfolk County. And I saw what so many of you have seen. I saw the tragedy of the death of Sandra Birchmore. I saw the tragedy of the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And I saw a district attorney's office that failed to deliver justice. A district attorney's office that failed to conduct even basic investigations. A district attorney's office that failed to charge cases in a way that would be consistent with the facts. And it actually got to a point where I was looking at the drumbeat of cases here, and I literally said out loud, what on earth is going on in Norfolk County? So I left the U.S. Attorney's Office and launched this campaign because I believe what this DA's office needs is wholesale cultural change, the kind of change that can only come from a change in leadership, and ideally a more independent, outside perspective. Someone who's been trained as a federal prosecutor, someone who specializes in investigating and prosecuting public corruption cases, someone who has worked for years with the Innocence Project and has seen some of the hardest cases from the other side. And I think it's that perspective and it's that unique set of experiences that make me uniquely qualified for this job in this moment. Thanks.
Great. Robert.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me and having us here tonight. My name's Bob Jubinville, and a little bit about my background. I was born out in Western Mass in a city called Holyoke, and when I got through with high school and some college, I ended up being a union sprinkler fitter. I then went in the United States Army. When I got out of the Army, I went on the state police. I got my undergraduate degree and law degree there, and I started practicing defense work in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and other states. And I did that for over 40 years. And I've had a lot of experience with assistant DAs, good and bad, and experience with DAs, good and bad. I'm running for district attorney. I've lived in East Milton Square area of Milton for a very long time. My daughters went to school in Milton, and I practiced out of Milton for over 40 years, and I still live there. I'm running because, well, everybody's heard about the cases that were publicized about Karen Reed, and I don't know Karen Reed from Adam, and the other cases involved. And what it did was, in my view, it ruined the reputation of the district attorney's office, which had a good reputation before that. And that reputation now has been so soiled that people I talk to, no matter which side of those cases they're on, they hate the district attorney's office. They don't feel they can get a fair shake for them or their family members. Victims don't feel like they should go and report things to the district attorney's office because they don't feel they'll get a fair shake. So I'm running to try to make a difference. A couple of things I want to do is, number one, keep President Trump's hands off our judicial system in Norfolk County. I'm going to appoint a independent, objective review board to review all of the police conduct in Norfolk County DA's office.
Great. Thank you. Macy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Macy Lee, and thank you to Kathy and Jaya and Quincy Votes for having me here. I've lived in Milton for the last 23 years, going on 24. I am running for Norfolk County District Attorney to restore accountability, transparency, and integrity to the Norfolk County DA's office. And having experience in being a representative of the community of Norfolk County matters. I spent 34 years as an attorney, 20 of that as a prosecutor, and 32 in public service. I grew up in Boston in Chinatown to immigrant parents, and I went to Boston Public Schools. I have a lot of experience that is needed for the office in terms of management, prosecutorial, and leadership as well. And for the 40% of the other community here in Quincy, I'm going to introduce myself as this. 我名係李美詩，我喺 Milton 住咗23年，我做咗律師34年，我係幫好多人做咗32年。我提你咧好緊要有人有個亞洲人代表我哋一個總會區嘅 office，so 好緊要。我叫你哋咧聽我話，我喺唐人街住咗。喺度長大，去到 Boston 讀書，所以我叫你唔該你記得提你哋、提啲朋友、提你啲家庭、提你個國家，全部9月1號一定要去投票，又選我做長澤嬌。多謝晒 ，Thank you.
Thank you. And Craig.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Craig MacLellan, and I'm very grateful to be a candidate for Norfolk County DA. Thank you for having me. I've lived in Massachusetts my whole life. I live in Cohasset with my wife and my 2 children. I've been practicing law here in Massachusetts in our Massachusetts state courts for over 20 years. During that time, I've served as both a criminal prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, so I've watched from both sides of our criminal courtrooms as our justice system here in Massachusetts evolved for both better and for worse. And I also am lucky enough to hold a position of public trust in my hometown. Right now, I'm in my 3rd term in the Cohasset School Committee. And among other things, that role has required me to manage a budget of public funds in the amount of $25 million. And that's an often overlooked feature of the district attorney's role. Our DA needs to be a responsible steward of our tax dollars, and you need someone that's capable of doing that. I look at this election as an opportunity to start fresh and to elect a DA who is going to approach this job with enthusiasm and vigor, and who is going to approach it as a responsibility to others. And I know there's been controversy, and we need to take those controversies seriously and identify and acknowledge the failures that gave rise to them. And we need to effectively respond to them so that they never happen again. But we also can't let them define the office or the election. It's bigger than that. We need a DA who, as I plan to do, will deliver enthusiastic, energetic leadership that will oversee fair and impartial investigations and responsibly manage our funds, who will increase accountability by establishing things like resident advisory committees who will meet regularly with the DA and evaluate them on an annual basis and report that out, and who will reduce recidivism and prevent crime by collaborating on innovative and proactive programs that strike at the root causes of our lead causes of crimes in Massachusetts, which are substance abuse and mental health crisis. I hope I can earn your trust and support. Thank you.
And Djuna.
Thank you so much to Quincy Votes for all the work you do, and of course for tonight's event. My name is Djuna Perkins. When I was 2 weeks old, my mother, suffering from severe postpartum depression, died by suicide. 4 months later, my father was stabbed in a riot in New York City and nearly died. No one even bothered to look for his attacker. In the wake of those events, my childhood was very chaotic. There was poverty, neglect, food stamps, free lunch, drugs in our home. I've had relatives go to state prison and to juvenile detention. And sometimes the people who were supposed to be taking care of me were the ones who were causing the most harm. So I decided to become a lawyer, to be the voice for others that I hadn't had for myself as a child. And that's what I've done for more than 30 years. First as a prosecutor for 10 years in the Attorney General's office under Scott Harshbarger, where I served in the appeals unit, in the Safe Neighborhood Initiative in Brockton District Court, and in the Narcotics and Special Investigations in Superior Court. I then went to the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, where in my last role, I was the chief of the Domestic Violence Unit with oversight responsibility of all domestic violence cases in Suffolk County. I also supervised the Dorchester District Court, which is one of the largest and busiest courts in the state, and I was a member of the homicide response team. I've supervised dozens of employees and thousands of cases. And in the past 20 years, I've continued to represent victims of crime in civil litigation for childhood sexual abuse and discrimination, and in conducting investigations for schools and workplaces. In September of 2024, I decided to challenge incumbent Michael Morrissey when I saw his failure to prosecute the murder of Sandra Birchmore was part of an ongoing pattern of bad decisions. I was the first in the race, the first to call for Michael Morrissey's resignation, the first and perhaps only candidate to pledge to prosecute ICE agents when they violate Massachusetts law, and I'm proud to have the endorsement of dozens of legal professionals and community leaders around the county.
Thank you. Well, appreciate all of your commentary there. And so now we'll move into the questions. And Greg, you'll go first. And Jay, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and just a reminder, you have 3 minutes per response, and there'll be a ring at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, as well as the 3-minute mark. Okay. So the first question is, what does a DA do, and what should the public understand they will get if they elect you to this role?
Okay, so I envision the DA's office has 2 main purposes. The first one's kind of easily understood or seen on television, which is prosecuting crime. They would have an office staffed with attorneys who would go into courtrooms. They would be representing the Commonwealth, and they're the lead prosecuting agency in the county. So every day in the 5 district courts, the juvenile courts, and the Superior Court, if there's a crime that's being prosecuted, for the most part, it's the district attorney's office in Norfolk County that's doing it. The district attorney would be managing those attorneys and making sure that they had the resources that were appropriate to prosecute those cases. The second mission of a district attorney's office is to help prevent crime. And they can do that through various different programs. For instance, the treatment courts have been able to, statistically they say, have been decreasing recidivism over time. Some of the treatment courts that have been created in the last 25 years here are a drug court. I got to be involved in that. In a veterans court, I got to be involved in that. We also have a mental health court. We have domestic violence sessions. We have gun sessions. These specialty courts help defendants who are going through these certain issues deal with these issues, usually through intensive probation, with the idea that they will be less reoffending. Now, the other thing that a district attorney's office can do to help prevent crime is work with community partners. For instance, the community coalitions that represent every town in the county, they got access to Narcan before almost everyone else did after the first responders did. They were trying to decrease overdoses. So the district attorney's office can help get funds in the hands of these community partners to help them deal with issues within their community. A district attorney's office that I envision would be trying to decrease crime. And the first way I think we could do that is with an emerging adults court. This would be a court geared towards 18 to 21-year-old nonviolent offenders. If they successfully complete probation that deals with mental health or drug addiction issues that have been identified, the case is dismissed and they don't have a criminal record, so they've gotten the benefits of probation and none of the stigma of a conviction. Thereby, they'll have the access to education, professional licensure, housing, all of the things that a conviction could prevent them from getting. In addition, I think that the district attorney's office trying to prevent crime should be reaching out to community partners like councils on aging and high school, warning people about risky behavior and trying to prevent them from becoming defendants as well as victims. I think also that a district attorney's office that would be best suited towards prosecuting crime in this county needs a dedicated cold case unit. It also needs, as one who's worked those cases, they require a lot of time and they need more resources. I would also create an animal cruelty unit because I've found that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Animal cruelty touches on elder abuse, spousal abuse, financial and drug abuse. Having well-trained attorneys on that could help us find the offenders that are hurting the victims that can't tell us what's happening.
Thank you. Adam, you'll go next.
Thanks so much. To me, the job of district attorney comes down to two main concepts: public safety and public trust. Two concepts where you can't have one without the other. And unfortunately, over the past few years, the current district attorney and his executive team have lost the public's trust. So the biggest difference between Michael Morrissey and me, Adam Deitch, is that the public will trust the district attorney's office again. And under my leadership, I'm gonna do a number of different things. First of all, when it comes time to investigate and prosecute violent criminal cases in Norfolk County, I'm going to follow the facts and the evidence no matter where they lead or who they implicate. We're gonna complete investigations, and we're not gonna have to rely on the feds, the US Attorney's Office, and the FBI to step in to complete investigations that the DA's office and the State Police Detective Unit at the DA's office failed to complete. But there's gonna be so much more. I was the first candidate in this race to unveil a comprehensive policy agenda detailing my positive vision for the future of the DA's office, which I'm excited to talk about right now. It includes a number of new units and task forces at the DA's office that are in line with my priorities as DA. First and foremost, we're going to introduce a first-of-its-kind anti-corruption task force. We're going to equip our DA's office in Norfolk County with the ability to investigate and prosecute allegations of corruption. Not only will we be able to enforce in those kinds of cases, but we're going to send a message to the public that corruption is no longer welcome in Norfolk County. We're going to build a real conviction integrity unit using national best practices, because my work with the Innocence Project taught me what the consequences can be when police and prosecutors rush to judgment and take shortcuts and draw conclusions before collecting all the evidence. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, it's because that's exactly what's been happening in Norfolk County for far too long. I was the first candidate in the race to talk about a dedicated cold case unit, so we're going to establish that as well. But we're going to address other issues head on: elder fraud and hate crimes, with dedicated enforcement teams and task forces. As a Jewish person, I believe that anti-Semitism is on the rise in Massachusetts, and what we've seen from this DA's office covers the gamut from racism to bigotry to misogyny to anti-Semitism as well. What was referenced before, Michael Proctor's texts, demonstrate a level of bias and a cultural problem that can't end just with Michael Proctor. We're going to root that out and ensure that people like that never work in law enforcement in Norfolk County. We're going to embrace data-driven prosecution, where we collect and analyze and marshal data to allocate resources internally and be open and transparent with the public about our measures for success over time. There's so much more, and I hope I get to talk about it with you as the night goes on.
Thank you. Bob, on to you.
Thank you very much. Well, as a clerk magistrate, I manage people. I hire people, I train people, and the biggest role I play, in my view, is making sure those people don't do something that is going to bring discredit or dishonor on the court system. The elected district attorneys in this Commonwealth do not prosecute. They don't try cases. That hasn't been done in decades. What they do is they hire people, they manage people, and they darn well better keep assistant district attorneys on a tight leash, because when they don't, we have seen what happens when they don't. Assistant district attorneys convinced the district attorney it was a good idea to prosecute Miss Reed, even though the investigation was incompetent and corrupted from the beginning. In my view, you can't have an investigator that's got a bias against somebody he's investigating. In this case, they hated her. They wanted her dead, according to one of the emails. You can't have somebody investigating people that have that going into an investigation. So I'm saying she should have never been charged right from the get-go. However, they were talking about going forward, charging her with second-degree murder. I didn't see it. I've done over 70 murder cases in my time, and I didn't see second-degree murder in this case whatsoever. After the first trial, you'd think everybody would have realized, because most people did, that the case was going nowhere. No. Assistant DA said, "We can do this, Mr. DA. We'll hire a special prosecutor. He'll come in." There's rumors they paid him over $500,000. He did worse than the first guy, because he wasn't a prosecutor. He wasn't trained in that field. So I'm going to change all of that. I'm going to find out by an independent board what went on with the police, what they did in that DA's office, and all the cases they touched, because somebody could be sitting in jail right now that shouldn't be there because of those kind of investigations. In addition to that, as a clerk, I set up and attend drug courts, mental health courts, and veteran courts. I've represented clients for many years in those specialty courts, they call them. And I like the specialty courts, but in my view, we should keep them, and we should expand it to people who aren't veterans, who don't have mental health, who commit a mistake for the first time in their career when they're young. And hopefully you can stop that so they don't turn into career criminals. I'm a big fan of victims of domestic abuse. I've represented a lot of, usually it's a woman. I've represented a lot of women that were domestically abused. I've seen it in the court that I'm a clerk in. Women coming in with black eyes and bleeding. So that to me is a big crime, and when you commit that kind of a crime, you're going to pay the price.
Thank you, Bob. Macy?
I'm going to start with saying that I think that a district attorney should be independent, unbiased, detached from political influences, and compassionate. A district attorney should possess managerial, leadership, and prosecutorial experience. And the reason why is, as someone here just said, the DA does not try cases. What the DA does is know how to manage an office. Manage an office in the sense that she knows how to hire, fire those that do not belong in the office, discipline those who need it, and train assistant district attorneys so that they are able to serve Norfolk County professionally, ethically, and with preparedness when they are in court. The district attorney should also have leadership experience, because she will set the highest standards of professionalism and ethics from which not only her office follows, but all law enforcement officers with whom she works and the office works. There should be a loud message from the district attorney that any personal bias in public safety will not be tolerated. She should lead by example and have the experience of leading other public and large-facing agencies. She should also possess years of prosecutorial experience, and the reason why is the district attorney has broad discretion in deciding which cases should be charged, which cases should be diverted, how investigations should be conducted, in what manner, and the type of evidence, whether it's tainted or something that can go forward with the case. That only comes from having years, decades of being a prosecutor. And in this particular case, in this position, state court, because Massachusetts has very different laws than federal laws. The rules of criminal procedure are very different in many ways than other practices. So the district attorney should possess all three of these qualities in order to ensure that the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office is run with professionalism, effectiveness, and with integrity. And absent those qualities, those three, I think, essential qualities for a district attorney, an office will not run in the way that it should, and it will not gain and maintain public trust in an office that has broad discretion, amazing power over the lives of many people. And I submit to you that I possess all three of these qualities for me to be the next district attorney in Norfolk County.
Thank you, Macy. Craig, on to you.
Thank you. The district attorney's primary role is to keep our community safe. And there are different approaches in doing that. And I think you're going to hear a wide spectrum of ideas from experienced attorneys that are running for this position. My personal experience is not only rooted in criminal justice but also public service, and I think that that's a really important element. It's one of the driving forces behind my vision for this role is rooted in my local government experience, and I alluded to that in my opening statement. When I assumed the role of school committee member in Cohasset, our school district was embroiled in a controversy involving a then teacher who was then accused of abusing middle school girls. And it created a situation in which residents became distrustful of the district's response to it. They became distrustful of the school district itself. And so we needed to take a different approach. And it was one that brought the community in, actively sought out their engagement and perspective. And what I saw that do firsthand as a school committee member was I saw it build enthusiasm and awareness about what the school was doing. And it empowered people to share their perspectives, and it made them feel appropriately that they were empowered to impact changes in their school district. We need to take the same approach with the DA's office. And in keeping the community safe, I think the DA needs to take a very community-centric approach to that. And that is what is missing right now in Norfolk County. I think you have a predominantly invisible DA. Most people, I understand that some people watching this may be acutely aware of the office and the controversy, but the general public is not aware too much of the DA's office, who the DA is, or what they're doing. And if you have that circumstance, you can never have good government. If people don't even know the name of the elected official, that's never going to lead to solid, accountable, productive government. And so the type of leadership I want to bring to the office is one that will empower residents to have agency in their public safety programming. Holding things like public safety forums, directly conversing with residents about the changes that can be made, in their community about crimes that are happening, about exchanging ideas, holding the DA responsible directly for concerns and questions, failures that arise. And they do arise from time to time, but that's the type of perspective I think is necessary in order to keep our community safe in a proactive manner. And I think Mr. Connor alluded to some of these with, diversion programs, but also partnering with recovery organizations. So I'm out of time, but I'll elaborate on other questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. And Djuna, you'll finish us off. Or actually, no, you won't. Second to last, my bad.
Thank you. The district attorney has three primary functions: prosecution, public safety, and justice. The district attorney can change a family's life forever with the stroke of a pen. She can undercharge a crime, as many people think happened in the case of Sandra Birchmore. He can overcharge a crime, as many people think happened in the Karen Reed case. And there is nothing you can do about it other than vote the person out on the next round. There's no appeal from decisions made by the district attorney. There's no civil liability of the district attorney. And there's no supervisor of the district attorney except for the voters. And there's many times when the district attorney cannot be completely transparent about what their decision making is, for good reason. And that means that the person that you choose as your district attorney must be someone you can trust to have your back when they can't tell you what's going on. They have to be someone who is skilled in the laws that affect Massachusetts and the people of Massachusetts. And that's because we've already seen what happens when someone who is unskilled, as Michael Morrissey was, because he was never a professional prosecutor, is at the head of an institution like this. In me, you will get all of those things. You will get someone who will do the job fairly, impartially, and in a trauma-informed way that empowers victims of crime, particularly those most vulnerable among us. I will prioritize violent crimes and crimes against our most vulnerable members: hate crimes, elder abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. These are crimes that have a tremendous impact for long periods of time on all the victims they affect, and they can lead to long-term harm and devastating consequences. We need to pay a lot more attention to those crimes, because these are the crimes that in our generally very safe county, the worst things are happening in our homes and at school. And we need to focus on those, and the person who is district attorney must have extensive skills and experience. Just look at the newspaper every single day. As district attorney, I will ensure that every state police trooper assigned to the district attorney's office is someone who did not work in the office for the last 5 years under Sergeant Buchanan. I will ask to interview candidates for the state police unit. I will also audit the office from top to bottom with auditing policies, training methods, charging decisions, and closed and open cases to ensure that they meet the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. I will also establish a clear written conflict of interest policy for when cases need to be referred out to other places. I will not take money from campaign donations from staff, nor will I ask staff to work on my campaign. I have the inside experience with 10 years as a prosecutor, as well as the outside perspective of someone in private practice for 20 years working with victims of crime. I have the courage to make the tough decisions, and I have the life and the professional experience to do the job well.
Thank you so much. And lastly, on to you, Jim.
Thank you. So I believe the question was, what does the DA do and what to expect from me if I'm elected? Now, I think the canned response to that is, the DA is there to administer justice. And while I wholly agree with that, I want to take it a step further. I want to say that we're there to administer justice for the betterment of Norfolk County in total. Now, that would always include, of course, me aggressively prosecuting serious violent crimes. And also, that's always going to be going along with supporting victims. Now, I say supporting victims in a way that means actually what these victims want. It's clear from my work as a defense attorney that not every victim wants to see a defendant or a criminal be thrown behind bars. So if that means diversion or some sort of restorative justice, my office would be totally on board with doing something like that. But I think a larger what to expect and what I should expect from any district attorney's office is that we're leaving the community in a better place than when we found it. And I say that because it's not just about racking up convictions and putting another notch on your belt. I think of the collateral consequences I see with some of my clients who are in front of the criminal justice system. These are folks who, whether they're held because they can't afford bail or they're put on a sentence for a low-level nonviolent crime, these are members of our community. And in some cases, these are mothers and these are fathers who aren't showing up for their children at the dinner table, which in part destroys the fabric of our community. And this goes along with common sense prosecutorial discretion. There's many cases that the prosecutor or the district attorney's office can choose not to prosecute. More often than not, you see them kind of carte blanche, just prosecuting whatever the police departments bring them. But this is the kind of the check on a police department, that you can have the discretion. You don't have to bring every single case. You can use common sense prosecutorial discretion. You can divert. You can decriminalize. Certainly certainly violent crimes are in a different category, but that's going to be folks working hand in hand with the victims of those crimes.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll pass it back to Kathy.
All right, thanks. So as I mentioned, we solicited the community for these questions. So I don't think you're going to be surprised by this next one, but regarding the deaths of Sandra Birchmore and John O'Keefe and the subsequent trial of Karen Reed, what do you believe are the lessons learned with these high-profile matters? And Adam, if you wanted to start us off.
Thank you, Kathy. And I think at this moment, this is a really important question because a lot of us here are running because of the national embarrassment this district attorney's office has become as a result of those two cases. I think that the consequences could not be more significant and more dire to the individuals involved in both of those cases, to the taxpayers who fund our district attorney's office, and to the general public who should be able to take for granted that their district attorney's office is doing its job. The question references two cases that I've already mentioned. The case of Sandra Birchmore, a young woman who was found dead in her apartment in Canton, where the district attorney's office did not conduct the investigation that Norfolk County or Sandra Birchmore deserves. They ruled her death a suicide. And in order for the investigation to be completed, the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I worked, and the FBI had to step in and complete that investigation. And that investigation provided evidence to investigators that caused the FBI to arrest someone for her murder. Matthew Farwell, a Stoughton police officer, was arrested and charged with Sandra Birchmore's murder, and he's currently awaiting trial. In the case of police officer John O'Keefe, who was found dead, the DA's office drew conclusions before collecting all the evidence in that case, and it resulted in 2 trials and an acquittal on all the most serious counts. And in that case, the DA's office spent probably close to $2 million of taxpayer money hiring an outside prosecutor and outside investigators to do a job that, if it's going to be done by the DA's office, should be done by the DA's office. And I think what's emerged, and I talk about this a lot on the campaign trail, what's emerged over the past few years is that Michael Morrissey and his DA's office have created a 2-tiered system of justice in Norfolk County, where if you know the right people or if you're connected to certain members of law enforcement, you've been able to get special treatment. And those 2 cases, the case involving Sandra Birchmore, the case involving John O'Keefe, they both are part of that theme. And those cases got all kinds of attention for different reasons. The reality, of course, is that most victims, most defendants are not able to get that kind of attention. And so it raises the question, what else has been going on in Norfolk County that we don't even know about? Under my leadership as DA, we are going to find out.
Thank you, Adam. Bob.
Thank you very much. The Birchmore case first. When I look at what has happened, the police in Stoughton, the police in Canton, the state police, they seem to have a incestuous relationship They were out drinking together, partying together. If Jubinville's the DA, any state police officer in the unit will not have worked for any city or town in Norfolk County. That will be a rule I have. The Birchmore case was, and I'm speculating somewhat because I don't know what investigation was done. It didn't seem like a lot was done. The ME came in and said she committed suicide. I've cross-examined probably over 50 medical examiners in my trials. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them think they work for the DA's office. What happened, as I see it, from just what I've heard on TV from family members saying that she was very happy being pregnant and buying clothes for the baby. Well, that's certainly not somebody who's contemplating suicide. The medical examiner, I believe, changed his ruling in the last 2 or 3 months from suicide to undetermined. Now, the problem there is, if you ever do start prosecuting somebody for that case, you've already got a liability with the changing of the cause of death. And some defense lawyer is going to have a field day with that medical examiner in front of the jury. That's number one. But what I would do if Jubinville's the DA, I'm going to have a special investigative grand jury, and everybody and anybody that's got any information is going to get a nice invitation to the grand jury under oath by way of a subpoena, and see where that goes. The problem when you have a failed investigation, it's very difficult then to come in and correct all that stuff. The Reed case, I believe was, she's the one that did it, let's make the evidence fit. Yeah, you can get an indictment. Yes, you can charge her. But when you have trials, it looks like putting 5 pounds of you-know-what in a 2-pound bag. It doesn't look good at all, and that's what we saw in those trials. The evidence didn't fit anything. It was all over the place. And to me, it was a disgrace even charging the young lady with that crime. So that's my take on it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. And Macy.
I'd like to address the Sandra Birchmore murder first. Obviously very tragic, and I am glad that it is now in the capable hands of an AUSA at the U.S. Attorney's Office. But it didn't need to go there. It should have stayed in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office had someone carefully looked at the medical examiner's report and not stopped at the determination and the conclusion that it was suicide. And that is due to the lack of experience and skill of prosecutors in the office. I'm glad to see that the governor signed into law a few weeks ago making an exception to the age of consent, which was, it still is 16, but not when it comes to coaches and teachers and other people that have the opportunity to groom a child and then engage in sexual relations at the age of 17. And that is a statute, I think, that could have been used in the Sandra Birchmore's case before she died. But that particular investigation is evidence of the lack of skill and experience in leadership that was at the Norfolk, or that is at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. And as DA, that will change under my leadership because it requires more than one set of eyes to make a determination. That should have been an executive level decision by not just one person, not 2, 3 people, including the district attorney himself. As to the Karen Reed case, there are twofold issues here. The first one is the charging of Karen Reed and who made that charging decision, who gave the permission for that to be presented in grand jury, and how was that indictment sought? Because based on 2 trials, I think there is safe to say at this point that Karen Reed was overcharged. and the result of that was the lack of justice for John O'Keefe's murder. The other side of the situation with Karen Reed is, based on the communications that I recently read, and this is not just with Procter & Good, there seems to be a lot of conspiracy with the defense team with regards to witness intimidation, obstruction of justice, and as well as criminal harassment. And from what I've read, there seems to be a conspiracy based on communications for that to happen during the trial. So, as Norfolk County District Attorney, the Karen Reed matter has not yet stopped. Perhaps she does have double jeopardy in terms of the murder of John O'Keefe, but there was behavior that existed during the trial that needs to be investigated and needs to be held accountable for.
Thank you, Macy. And Craig.
Thank you very much. I think the first thing I want to say about these cases is that I did not run because of these cases. I think they are symptoms of a larger illness with the office and with the type of public service they're providing, but it's not something that drove me to run for the office. I'm running for this office because I feel like I have a unique vision and I can provide a very unique service and contribute to something very valuable to improve our community. As far as lessons that could be learned, I think one of the major lessons, and this is more applicable to Officer O'Keefe's case than it is to Ms. Birchmore's, is that we need to be wary of how quickly drama and sensationalism can overshadow the loss of human life. We can never lose sight of the fact that every one of these cases dealing with death, we're all the less for the loss of human life, and this Officer O'Keefe's trial became quickly about a celebrity defendant and conspiracy theories, and less about that he was left for dead on the side of the road, and that there was a family he left behind. There were children that he cared for that were left behind, and I think that we very quickly, I think that the DA's office allowed that to spiral out of control. I think the media contributed to that as well, and that's one of the major lessons that we've learned. Other specific lessons, and I think there's some overlap with these between the two cases. The failure to vet, Mr. Jubinville alluded to this, a failure to properly vet conflicts of interest amongst investigators. We need to be absolutely certain there are no conflicts of interest. It is insane to have relationships between investigators and interested parties in any sort of criminal investigations. It just will lead to the appearance of impropriety at best and impropriety at worst. There was a lack of a concrete, well-defined processes for charging decisions. There was a lack of proper training and in equipping officers, first responders with resources to properly sort of secure a crime scene. There was, I think, an absolute mismanagement of public funds with regards to Officer O'Keefe's case. And as I think one of the other candidates, it might have been Mr. Deitch, had alluded to or had mentioned specifically. With Ms. Birchmore's case, I think we had a failure of the DA's office to take seriously the pleas of the victim's family and to look further into whether or not, and challenge the ME's initial determination. And not being intimately involved in it, I guess I'm out of time, but hopefully I can elaborate on other questions.
Thank you. All right, and Djuna.
Thank you. I think the first takeaway is that I believe that all of the controversy and sensationalism that came out of both of those cases are because of poor decisions made by the district attorney's office. And many have already alluded to this, that one of the first lessons is that the district attorney must have professional experience as a prosecutor in Massachusetts state courts to be able to make the kinds of decisions and lead the office and manage the employees That's what it has to be. And it has to be, the district attorney has to be someone who can role model the fact that the charges must always match the evidence, no greater, no less, that they must keep an open mind, even when new evidence appears that might contradict our original theory. The prosecutor has a duty to remain flexible and have an open mind. Confirmation bias has no place in a district attorney's office, or in a police department for that matter. Neither does ego. And in both of these cases, we saw the district attorney doubling down every time he was criticized, both in the Sandra Birchmore case and in the case of John O'Keefe. I think the second lesson that the second takeaway is that we must center victims and witnesses to crime in the district attorney's office. And that is because no one else speaks for them. The defendant has a defense attorney, there's a judge that's supposed to be neutral, there's probation officers that support the defendant, but there is no one else besides the district attorney's office who speaks for victims and witnesses. Had the district attorney centered victims and witnesses, perhaps the murder of Sandra Birchmore would actually have been prosecuted. Perhaps the family of John O'Keefe wouldn't have been put on a roller coaster for 3 years because they were told that they might get a murder conviction. And then to do it again after the mistrial was, to me, one of the greatest tragedies of all. Because you should never, as a lawyer, make a promise that you don't think you can keep, that you're not sure you can keep. And finally, the failure to protect Commonwealth witnesses was also, had there been greater centering of victims and witnesses, then perhaps the witnesses would not feel, as I saw quoted a while ago, that they would never advise anyone else to participate as a witness in a trial. That makes us all unsafe. And all of that lays at the feet of the district attorney. And finally, the final lesson is that there is a problem with racism, sexism, homophobia, and every other terrible ism that we can think of somehow in that office or in that universe, whether, as we saw from Trooper Proctor's text messages, which it is impossible to imagine that people in the district attorney's office did not know that's who Trooper Proctor was. It is impossible to me that was the case. They did nothing about it in terms of reporting him for discipline or getting him out of that unit when they could have. And I think we really need to address that.
Thank you, Djuna. All right, and Jim.
Thank you. So, both cases that you mentioned, they're both terrible. I think they've both made a stain on Norfolk County that's going to be real difficult to wash out, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum. In many cases, it's caused more divisivity than people who are for or against Donald Trump. And whether these are what your neighbors support or your friends who, maybe some people say, oh, I thought these people were my friends, but now I don't know if I could be friends with these folks after what I know they believe on the case or cases. So much that it's caused the first election, contested election for Norfolk DA in over 4 cycles. Now, I don't have any inside information. I've never worked in a prosecutor's office. I don't know what deals are or are not made, behind closed doors. But the only thing I have is the perspective of a criminal defense attorney, and also my life experience of being, just as outraged as the rest of the general public is about these cases. And again, wherever that is, you fall on the spectrum. But as for lessons from these cases, there's one thing that's clear, at least from both. Proctor, he knew the Alberts, and as far as the Sandra Birchmore case, Officer Farwell had a relationship with the people who should have been objectively investigating him, and those are 2 things that just can't happen. That's what's caused these cases to implode, and they never should have been left to investigate themselves.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
And Greg.
Hey, Kathy. So I think that everyone's on the same page. I think one of the biggest problems with both of these matters was a apparent conflict or a definite conflict of interest in these matters. In fact, what we have was officers who knew parties involved. And I think one of the lessons that we're talking about is what do we learn from these cases? We have to avoid that. And I think we have to expand the notion of the conflict of interest so that when officers are responding, if they know people involved, if they know a suspect, if they know a witness, they know a victim, they have to be taken out of the case so we have objective eyes in it. And I think that that is a no-cost to low-cost solution that we can work on. And that could be the first thing I think we learned from both these cases. From the John O'Keefe case, what I saw when I watched the first trial was litigating whether or not the truck hit John O'Keefe, not why it did. So I think I'm on the same page as almost everyone here saying it was overcharged. It wasn't a homicide case. And what I see in the DA's office is that we would report our cases to a first assistant and review them there. And so in 2004, in October 2004, the first assistant retired, and I was asked to take over supervision of homicides. With all the new cases that came in, instead of them being siloed or one or two people making the decisions, we brought in a group of investigators, a group of attorneys, and a group of advocates. They reviewed all of the information that had been collected. If the case could meet that burden and go through that threshold, it could go forward at the grand jury. If it couldn't, then the case had to go back and more work had to be done on it. So working collaboratively and bringing more people into the decision-making process was something else I think we learned to prevent overcharging. On the Birchmore case, I think what I saw there was a missed opportunity to truly investigate what had happened once Dr. Bodden, hired by the family, had declared it to be a homicide. What should have been done is the case should have gone to a judicial inquest. And at that point in time, the prosecution, the defense, and the family all would have been before a judge presenting everything, before an objective set of eyes, getting directions from a judge. What are the next steps? Is there enough to charge? Is there not? Go to a grand jury. So I think one of the lessons we learned from that is that we have to be able to think outside the box. Now, I had seen that process done twice in my career, and it worked both times. Each time, when we went to a judicial inquest, the judge said go to the grand jury, present the case, and each time the case was indicted. It's a process that's done in Middlesex County, and I think it's one that could be done over here on cases where we're questioning the cause of death. And so with that, I think we learned 3 lessons from these 2 cases. Conflict of interest has to be expanded. We have to be more collaborative on how we charge and review cases, and we have to be more open to trying to figure out how we can collect information.
All right, so our next question will be from Jaya. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And Bob, you'll be answering this one first. So Quincy's demographics are shifting, and we now have a large Asian American population. What would your office do to serve our community's changing needs?
Well, I think diversity is good, and I think the DA's office should have the ability to have people that speak fluent in different languages and to go into those communities and make a presence known that, you know, you're going to get treated fair like everybody else is going to get treated. Because I think sometimes when there's a language disparity, that sometimes people are afraid to make a complaint or afraid to call the police because of the way they might get treated. I do note from my reading anyway that hate crimes seem to be moving ahead and moving forward and getting more and more. And of course, as you know and everybody knows, those are crimes against people that are different, speak different, have different customs and habits. So I think it's important for the DA's office to make it known in those communities that we're there for you. We have people that can converse, and you can be assured that when you say something to them, it will be taken seriously. And they will be treated equally by all people in the district attorney's office. That would be my take on what I do.
Great, thank you so much. Macy, on to you.
So I think everyone now is aware I'm fluent in Chinese Cantonese, a little bit in Chinese Mandarin, and that's because I am a child of immigrants. Both my parents immigrated here from Hong Kong in 1967, and that was after they fully lifted the Chinese Exclusion Act. If they had done so earlier, my children, and I do consider them to be 6th generation Chinese Americans, but because of anti-immigration measures, we weren't allowed to become citizens until 1967, 68. So I am very well aware of the diversity in Norfolk County. I'm very proud of it. It's one of the reasons why we decided to live in Milton 23 years ago. My parents also have lived in Milton now for close to 45 years. And they chose Milton for that reason too, proximity to the city and the diverse community. I'm currently the director of the Office of Medicaid Board of Hearings, which is an quasi-independent but totally impartial adjudicatory board for Mass Health. It is one of the largest adjudicatory boards in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I manage 60 employees. When I assumed this position 4 years ago, one of the first things I did was increase the staff and hired many staff members who speak Chinese Mandarin, Chinese Cantonese, Vietnamese, Haitian Creole, Spanish, and other languages as well. Members of the Cape Verdean community work in my office as well, because the Mass Health community is extremely diverse. It is also a very vulnerable community, similar to what the District Attorney's Office serves as well. We handle people who are elderly, with elderly parents, with disabilities, children with disabilities, those that need equitable access to quality health care, like all of us. So when I tell you that I promise to diversify the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office so that it represents the community that it serves, it's a promise that I intend to keep, because I've already kept it in my current position. And I think that's vital for public safety reasons, so that the diverse community of Norfolk County understands that they can come forward with any public safety concerns. Throughout this campaign, which I thoroughly enjoyed, I've met with the Cape Verdean community, Haitian Creole community, Vietnamese, Chinese, all throughout. And one of the chief complaints I've heard is, and this is also from the Muslim community, that there's no ombudsman, there's no community engagement office at the DA's office, and nobody knows who to turn to. And that's one of my first priorities, other than diversifying the staff, is to create an ombudsman, a community engagement unit, where the community, when there is a concern, they have a number that they can call, and not just leave a message, but have someone answer that call and provide help or resources and answers within that same day.
Thank you, Macy. And Craig, on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, you need to staff an office that appropriately responds to and addresses the needs and concerns of whatever community you represent. It doesn't matter which subset you're talking about or how you define any particular groups. The office needs to be responsive to all concerns. And this question actually relates to a primary part of my platform, which is community engagement. You're not going to know what the needs of a community are unless you get out and you encourage them to share their perspective and input. And that's how you're going to not only learn what is on their minds and what people need and how you can better respond to them and provide better public service. But you're also going to empower them to take an active role in what your public office does, and you're going to empower them to have agency in their public safety programming, and through that you'll build awareness and you'll build enthusiasm and excitement about it, and people will become more invested. But certainly from a staffing and resources perspective, you need an office that's going to more than adequately address the needs of the community you serve. So I think that's how I would address that.
Great, thank you so much. And Djuna, on to you.
Thank you. So one of the most rewarding parts of campaigning for me for 2 years is that I've really had a chance to crisscross the entire county, all 28 towns. And I've seen that we not only are as diverse, not just here in Quincy, but yes, in Quincy, that we're not only diverse in race, religion, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, sexuality, gender identity and sexual orientation, but also in the way we live. We have cities and towns and farms and beaches, and the richness of our county is really incredible. And I think that our diversity, the diversity of our people, and in every way, is our strength. And in the community, it makes us all richer, it makes us smarter and more interesting. And in the DA's office, the greater diversity, meaning having a staff that reflects the diversity of the community we serve, results in better decisions and greater justice. It's just true. So in a Djuna Perkins District Attorney's office, all staff will be culturally competent and trauma informed, which is kind of a fancy way of saying that everyone responds differently to crime, depending on how you were brought up, depending on your cultural traditions, and the staff of the District Attorney's office needs to be aware and open to those differences. Language accessibility is a must, both in the office in terms of staff members who speak other languages other than English, and also on the website and in forms that we provide. I also will require mandatory reporting by staff of incidents of bias by staff or community partners that we work with. I'm also prioritizing hate crimes. And finally, I really want to congratulate Quincy on the passage of the Lunar New Year school holiday, which I know has been a long and hard fought fight, and also on the increased number of candidates here in Quincy and elected officials and voters who hail from traditionally underrepresented groups in Quincy. That's something that I saw in the last 2 years of coming to city council meetings and town elections. I saw that a lot. So I think that diversity is really critical.
Thank you so much, Djuna. And Jim, on to you.
Yes, thank you. It's easier said than done, but I mean we're in a new era, and people need to stop being racist, and we need to start being more culturally aware. And it is a big ask, and that includes fighting back against ICE when they enter our communities, and that's especially when agents are executing warrantless searches of our community members, without probable cause, just because of the color of someone's skin or the way they talk or the language they speak. And I fight these issues every day at the state level as a defense attorney. And that's because one part it's my job. Secondly, I feel very passionate about doing that. And third, when this kind of behavior becomes normalized on the state level, at the state courts, the feds kind of feel like they can do whatever they want. And so it is a very important issue, especially when black and brown defendants and certainly Asian defendants are making up a disproportionate amount of the defendants compared to white residents in not just Norfolk County, but all of Massachusetts. So there needs to be implicit bias training, and even more importantly, with these issues coming up again and again in our state courts, that there needs to be more diversity on the bench, more cultural diversity for sure, and more color on the bench.
Thank you so much, Jim. And Greg, on to you.
Thank you. So I would see approaching it in 3 ways. The first is to champion true hate crime legislation. Right now, if someone commits an assault and battery in the course of a hate crime, it's a misdemeanor. However, in Massachusetts, it's a felony to have illegal prize fighting and an assault and battery to collect a loan. So those 2 crimes, based on violence, not utilizing a weapon, are felonies. However, if someone attacks somebody because of the way they look, who they worship, or who they love, that's a misdemeanor. That needs to change. We have to work with legislators, and we have to get true hate crime legislation. Because if people are acting that way, they're a danger to society, and we should be treating them serious. We should be prosecuting those crimes seriously, and they should be treated as felons. The second is internally, we can always do better. When I left the office, there was approximately a dozen different people in the office who could speak a dozen different languages to help us communicate with victims and witnesses. But we can utilize more people in the community, not just in the office, but reaching out to other resources, community partners. We can also utilize the police to help us do better with interacting with people of different cultures. But that's just internally. We have to go outside the office, and that's the third aspect. We need to have a discussion with our community partners, with different people of different faiths, different cultures, and find out what justice means to them. I work with a homeless shelter, and I was shocked when I was having a discussion that the victims of domestic violence didn't want to report their partners because they didn't want their partners to be in the system. That's true. We need to understand the people we serve better so that we can do a better job of figuring out who's utilizing our courts How can we work for them? How can we get justice? It shouldn't be just what we think in the office. We need them to help us understand what they think we can do for them. I'm not saying that we can't prosecute these crimes. I think we have to have a better understanding of how to do it. Bill Delahunt changed the culture of domestic violence in this state. He took it serious. He made sure that people were held accountable. And I think that we can do the same. And we have to work with our community partners to do that.
Thank you. And Adam, you'll end our segment.
Thank you. The diversity of Quincy, the diversity of Norfolk County is important and should be important to any DA's office, specifically ours. I think I agree with most of the candidates in this race, if not everyone. The DA's office absolutely should reflect the community it serves and should reflect the shifting demographics of Quincy and of Norfolk County. Part of my accountability agenda for the DA's office includes recruiting, training, and retaining the best prosecutors, the best investigators, the best members of a legal staff. And part of that is ensuring that our staff at the DA's office does reflect the community. I think that includes ensuring that our staff understands that defendants, survivors, victims, family members come from different backgrounds, and the staff is going to be trained on implicit bias and explicit bias. And I say explicit bias because Jim is right. It doesn't go without saying, and we know this now from the text messages that we've seen, that explicit bias exists under the roof of the DA's office. In my DA's office, decisions will never be made on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or gender. That means prosecutorial charging decisions, that means investigative decisions will never be based on any of those things. And finally, I talk a lot about a topic that might sound boring, but I swear it isn't, called data-driven prosecution. And it means that under my leadership, the DA's office is going to collect, analyze, and marshal data, both to allocate resources internally and to track and measure success over time. That includes ensuring that we're aware of the race and the ethnicity and the socioeconomic status and all kinds of other information about the defendants in our cases to ensure that we are not prosecuting cases on any of those bases, and that where there is bias in the system, we root it out.
Thank you so much, Adam. And I'll pass it back to Kathy.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda this evening is going to be closing statements. So you'll each have 2 minutes to wrap up get your final message out. I did, prior to moving on to that, I did want to thank QATV, John, so helpful, and the staff, providing us the space and technology to make this happen. We certainly hope the voters are able to take away some points and continue their research. As mentioned before, these 7 individuals are on the Democratic primary. There'll be 1 left after September 1st. Okay, so your vote's important. But that being said, if you're viewed as unenrolled in the process, you are actually you can pull either a Democrat or a Republican ballot. All right, so we'll be going over some important dates, but the most important date right now is September 1st. But you can keep in mind, you can vote by mail, all right? That deadline to request is 5 p.m. on August 25th. We definitely encourage people to request if you're going to vote by mail sooner rather than later, because if your ballot is not in, it won't be counted. And then be sure to check your registration, and all of this information is available on the quincyvotes.org website. But early voting begins in Quincy at City Hall, August 22nd and 23rd, 8:30 to 2:30, and then August 24th to the 28th, 8:30 to 4:30. Okay? All mail-in ballots need to be received by 8 p.m. on September 1st. So again, if you're going to vote by mail, do so early. But of all of these options, the most important item I can share is please vote. Okay? All right, so why don't we kick things off in regards to your closing statements. And Macy, we'll begin with you. 2 minutes, and you'll get the bell at 1:30 to set your timer.
Excellent. I urge everyone in Norfolk County to consider the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office election to be a very serious one. It is an opportunity in almost 16 years to change the face, the culture, and the professionalism in this office. And I urge everyone to do their due diligence, to do your research on every candidate, and to discover which candidate most aligns with what you think a district attorney should be. So when you are standing in that ballot box on September 1st, and you're looking at 7 circles, and you're holding that black felt tip pen, you should ask yourself, if this candidate handles some of the most important affairs in your life, such as managing your life savings, would you want that person to have the experience to manage your life savings? Is that person honest? Does that person have character? If you're hiring someone to drive your child to school, does that person have integrity? Does that person have a good record, a proven record of keeping your child safe or another child safe? Those are some of the questions that should cross your mind when you are picking your candidate on September 1st. You should look at the candidate's experience, their proven record. You should look at how they behave on the campaign trail, because that is evidence of how they would be when they're district attorney. So for the rest of the City of Quincy community, 我提你好緊要，9月1號你要去投票。你投票呢，你可以揀人哋代表個亞洲人。我呢係李美詩，我想你投票，想選我做檢察官。所以你呢提你啲家庭同你朋友9月1號要去投票。多謝晒 ，Thank you.
Thank you, Macy. And Craig.
Thank you. To me, the single most important consideration in deciding whether or not you should support a candidate running for office is why they are running, the reason they are running. And I believe that there is only one reason to seek or to hold public office, and that's service. It's service to others. It is not ego or the desire for political or personal advancement, or because they really want to be in charge of something. It is a desire to serve the community. And I am running for this office because I have a unique vision that I believe will contribute in a meaningful way to the improvement of our community. And I want you to be a part of that with me. So I hope I can count on your support. Please contact me with any questions. I'm always willing to have a conversation with anyone that's willing to talk about the DA's office and my vision. We all had limited time for responses to our questions tonight, but I'd love to elaborate on anything that you might have found interesting. And I hope I can earn your support and your confidence and hopefully your vote for MacLellan for District Attorney on September 1st. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Djuna.
Thank you. The critical question for voters in this election is which of us is best suited to bring justice, integrity, and trust back to the district attorney's office. The next district attorney must be someone with the highest level of skill, integrity, and judgment. She should be someone who has extensive experience in Massachusetts state courts and in empowering victims of crime. She should be somebody with the life experience to understand the difference between a bad decision made on a bad day, real evil, and everything in between. She should be able to collaborate with community partners to enhance justice, and she should be able to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Common sense tells us that the best way to predict future behavior is past performance. Nearly 2 years ago, I challenged the district attorney, not because I saw an opportunity, not because I felt like I was entitled to the job, but because it was the right thing to do. For if the government does not speak for the most vulnerable among us, we have no government at all. I became a voice for the voiceless because I knew what injustice felt like. And I've done just that for the past 30 years, fight for justice for victims of crime all over Massachusetts, holding offenders accountable for some of the most egregious behavior imaginable, getting six-figure settlements in civil litigation, and stripping bullies of their power. I have the professional experience, the life experience, and the courage to do this job the way it should be done. Please vote for me on September 1st.
Thank you, Djuna. And Jim.
Thank you. I woke up this morning and did the same thing I've done every day for the last decade plus, and that's defend families and defendants across Massachusetts. Now, I've never been a prosecutor. I don't find that to be a liability to my campaign. I actually find that to be an asset, because what I do in keeping families together, keeping communities together, and challenging government overreach is a perspective that's sorely needed in the district attorney's office. I mentioned in my opening statements I have two daughters. I moved to Norfolk County because I really appreciated the sense of community there. I really was proud of the place I was moving my family to, and I want to continue that pride, and I want to continue that vision for my county, your county, going forward. So I would appreciate a vote on September 1st for myself. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. And Craig.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jaya. And also thank you, Quincy Votes, for doing this tonight. This was great to get out here. Also, thank you to my fellow candidates. They are all very impressive. However, I will say, none of them have the same experience I do. None of them have been an assistant district attorney for 25 years in Norfolk County. None have worked for 3 different district attorneys. None have spent 25 years fighting for victims in these courts in this area. I can tell you, after doing this job, it requires a lot of you. And since October 2003, when I was named chief of the district courts, I've been on call 24 hours a day, every vacation, every holiday. You had to be ready to answer that call, and I have been. And this job is going to ask the next DA to be ready to answer that call, and I believe I can. Not only that, I was named the Prosecutor of the Year for Massachusetts in 2024. I've been endorsed by the Norfolk County Police Chiefs Association. I've been endorsed by victims. I've been endorsed by Mayor Koch. I've been endorsed by William Keating, U.S. Representative. I've been endorsed by Taki Chan and Bruce Ayers, state representatives. These are people that you have put your trust and faith in, and they have put their trust and faith in me. They believe I can answer the call. I love this county. I'm a 4th-generation resident of this county. My wife and I have raised our daughters in Milton. It means the world to me to serve this county. Kathy, you said earlier, your vote really counts. That's how you started this night. I agree with you. Your vote really counts, and that's why I'm here for you tonight. I'm ready to answer the call. I'm asking you to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm asking for your vote in the Democratic primary on September 1st, in part because I am not your typical district attorney candidate. If you want a person who's been a state prosecutor for many years ago, there are candidates in this race for you. If you want someone who's been part of the leadership team in the district attorney's office over the past 16 years, there's a candidate in this race for you. And if those are the qualities that you want, you should not vote for me. But I'm the only candidate in the race who's been trained as a federal prosecutor, and I'm so proud of the work that I did at the U.S. Attorney's Office, both in cases where we made big news with real criminal charges, and in cases where we decided we couldn't bring charges or where the evidence wasn't there. I'm the only candidate who specializes in police misconduct and public corruption cases, a perspective we badly need in this DA's office. And as I said before, I'm the only candidate who's represented wrongfully convicted individuals while working with the Innocence Project. It's that perspective, it's those experiences that are the reasons why Sandra Birchmore and Sandra Birchmore's family members and the organization Justice for Sandra Birchmore has endorsed my candidacy for DA. It's the reason why Karen Reed and her family and her legal team are supporting me. It's the reason why so many others who've been subjected to injustice by this DA's office are supporting my campaign for DA. And I ask for your vote in the Democratic primary on September 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And Bob?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to just say one thing. Greg MacLellan brought it up. John O'Keefe is dead. And unfortunately, we will never know what happened to him. His parents will never know how he died. And I offer my condolences to his family, because I think with all the 2 trials, all the publicity that went along with that, and now the enormous publicity on these civil cases back and forth, John O'Keefe has been forgotten. Forgotten by the public, forgotten by the people that are fighting in these lawsuits, and that's a shame. That's a real shame. It didn't have to happen. If things were done right, if rules were followed, this wouldn't have happened. Ladies and gentlemen, a couple of our good candidates here said experience. Well, if that's the case, I have more experience than anybody sitting at this table in our court system. Most of my adult life has been in the court system. I love courts. I love going to courts. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not an assistant DA. I am not assistant U.S. attorney prosecutor. I never was. If you want one, you've got a good selection of people here. And the culture won't change. There's an old saying in the defense bar, once a DA, always a DA. If you want a cultural change, I'm your person. If you want somebody that's going to rein in assistant DAs that are going off the rails, then vote for Jubinville. I ask for your vote, and I thank the Quincy vote for putting on this wonderful forum.
Great.
And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you. So again, that concludes our forum. I'll say it again. Your vote matters, okay? Quincy Votes believes that this Norfolk County District Attorney's office is one of the most critical in our county, if not the most. So please continue your research, reach out to the candidates if you have questions, but most importantly, vote. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for making the time today and helping us educate our community. Thank you.
Thank you.